Well, good evening and welcome to ACL update number 4. This is in fact the last ACL update for the year. And as always, I'm Alister Cameron. I'm one of the national directors at the Australian Christian Lobby. And I'm always with the wonderful Wendy Francis, National Director for Politics. Hi there, Wendy. How are you this week?
Hi, Merry Christmas, everybody. We're in the last stages before Christmas now.
Yes, we are. So we will take a break, as does the political world, in recess until the end of January. We'll probably come in a bit earlier than the end of January. But if we don't, give us the luxury of that break and we'll come back renewed with vim and vigour for the coming year. What we wanted to do for this last 30 minutes episode this week was really just do a round trip around the states. We have wonderful state leaders here at the ACL who are doing tremendous work both in the political space and in the grassroots volunteering space, which of course you'll be aware has been a tremendous focus for us at the ACL this year. We have actually raised up and trained over, I believe, 6,000 volunteers coming into this Christmas period. You will know we've been running a Gospel of Luke campaign where we've been distributing just that track, that particular Gospel of Luke, and that has gone tremendously well, and that has brought in a vast number of volunteers. And just a credit to the entire team we've had deployed to raise up, train, mobilise and send out folks to distribute the Gospel of Luke, and we're hearing tremendous stories coming back. We're probably going to leave an analysis of that or a review of that for next year, because there's just so much activity that continues up until Christmas, and we'd like to sort of package that nicely for you. So, in the meantime, let's do a quick round of the states and let's find out what's been going on this year and what they're looking forward to next year. First up is Victoria and Jasmine Nguyen, who, aside from a really good political nose, has done tremendous work with volunteers this year. Jasmine, really, really proud of your efforts there. But just give us a sense of how things are going in Victoria, or how it sort of wrapped up for 2021. Perhaps first, the conversion bill came and went, but it actually comes into law in February.
Yes, actually, this conversion bill, it passed this year, February, although it feels like it was long ago, but it's actually this year, February. So what I want to wrap up is that, I don't want to be pessimistic about that. I want to, close our year looking from a positive perspective. So we'll just see what we have achieved when fighting against this bill. I would say you have done extraordinary work in that. Just recap on that. We have a few thousand signatures on just one petition. And not to mention, we have over a few hundred people attending a march that we have organized. And among them, there are Muslim leaders, there are Catholic leaders, there are also Chinese and African churches. And also there are a few hundred pastors sign an open letter, and we actually published that on Herald Sun. And you know what it resulted in? There is most of the upper house crossbenchers actually voted against that bill. I think this is something that we should celebrate.
Indeed.
Jasmine,
indeed.
Can I just say, this is one of the things that we absolutely love about you, because, there's been a lot of tough stuff in Victoria, and, Christopher has been helping, everyone's been helping as well with some of our legal stuff, because there's been some really tough stuff. But you always manage to be able to bring in the blessings as well. So we love that about you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Wendy. But I would say it's all the LCOs and the volunteers as well as the supporters. You know what? Without all their work and all this activism, I think things could be worse in Victoria.
And when we say LCOs, we're talking about local campaign organisers. They are people that we have really given tremendous responsibility to over a federal electorate for the volunteering and the grassroots activities that occur at that level. And we have done a tremendous job. We've almost fully now loaded up our LCO ranks, someone for every federal electorate in the state, so that we can divvy up, sort of divide and conquer Australia, as it were. And Jasmine's done a tremendous job. Now, you've also got Fiona Patton, head of the Reason Party. To give her credit where it is due, she's quite a competent politician, but we just tend not to agree with what she's trying to achieve. She's attempted numerous times to remove the Lord's Prayer from Parliament, and we've done quite well to resist that so far.
Yes, definitely. It's a credit to all our volunteers and supporters as well. So to fight against her motion, we actually have more than 11,000 people writing to different MPs, and there are different politicians coming back to me and say, we have never received such a huge amount of emails in such a short period of time. And you know what? Fiona Patton also took notice of that. And in her Facebook account, she actually said that ACL is fighting against this. So let's send more emails to your MP. So you see, the work pay off is because we saw that the Lord's Prayer have been retained in the Victorian Parliament right now. So that is great.
Great victory, Jasmine. That's really good. No doubt, things will come in the future to challenge that again. The Religious Exceptions Bill, we talked about that last week with John Steenhoff, and we're also aware that was the result of tremendous effort on our part. It didn't go our way, but what I'm saying is we did put up a tremendous a fight in that respect. Just give us a sense of what we achieved there, despite the bad outcome.
Well, it's pretty similar outcome. Well, of course, we know that the bill has passed, but at least we have 695 church leaders sign an open letter, and over 12,000 of our supporters write emails to our MPs. And at the end, what is good is that the Liberal National parties actually oppose the bill. So there is something achieved incredibly out of that. And a good thing is that according to the Shadow Attorney General, Dr. Matt Bark, he actually said that this bill could be unconstitutional and could be potentially challenged in the court. So I would say I still hold on to hope. I still, in Jesus, we always have hope. We are not easily giving up. So this is the hope that we have. Apart from that, there is election coming up. If it goes well, things could go our way and we can still turn the tide.
Wonderful. Any conclusions on Victoria there from your perspective, Wendy?
Well, I think that hope is what we cling to. So, Jasmine, just explain what you're hoping to achieve in 2022. I know that there's elections and things, so can you just give us a wrap up of what your hope is for the next year?
My hope is to continue to motivate and mobilize our volunteers, because as you say, all these little victory is because of our volunteers' activism. So if they can continue, I think we can make a difference in the 2022 state election. We don't know the results, but if we don't do anything, we'll definitely lose this battle. But if we continue to do something, definitely we can change the tide. So the important thing for us is that state election in November 26.
Indeed. And look forward to things that we're doing in 2022 ahead of the Victorian election too. Nothing much to say on that yet, but we've got plans, don't we, Wendy?
We do.
Okay. Look, Jasmine, thank you so much for that. We'll now move across to the ACT and to New South Wales. The wonderful Nikki Aben is with us. Nikki, you're reasonably new to the ACL team. You've been with us for most of this year, I think, but you've been doing a tremendous job just settling in, and really your volunteering, organising skills have just been absolutely tremendous, and the fruit of that is being born every day. But more on the political side of things, Nikki, what's the 2021 looked like from your perspective in New South Wales?
Yeah, it's been, well, thanks for having me firstly, Alister and Wendy. So it's been quite an interesting ride for New South Wales this year. One of the highlights, I suppose, is the Mark Latham Parental Rights Bill. And because of the activism of the volunteers from ACL, we really turned the tide on that. Friday night, everyone was against this bill, but when we had that National Day of Action on February 27, the numbers turned back to our way, and it resulted to about 55% supporting that bill with or without amendments, which even Mark Latham himself said that without ACL's help we wouldn't achieve that result. So yeah, again, that was a credit to all of our volunteers who just dedicated a good amount of hours to make those phone calls so that people can find out about this survey and complete it.
Nikki, I remember Mark Latham coming on one of our Zoom calls and just saying that it was a miracle. And so it was a really great call from Mark. It was great. So well done.
Thank
Not
you.
the
And
only
he,
great victory.
ooh,
Go
sorry,
on, Nikki.
Alistair. I was just saying he's not a man of faith, so for him to recognize that, that it was something from above that did this, I think is a witness, and that's our goal as Christians is to witness to these politicians at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
True indeed. Now, we had another victory with singing in church in the middle of COVID. There was a bit of manoeuvring going on there to try and sort of keep people out of church, but we didn't get everybody back into church. But what did we succeed in?
Okay, so it was an improvement. It wasn't the best thing, but essentially, worship leaders weren't allowed to sing live. And we put out a petition 7 o'clock in the morning. And by midday, over 2,000 ACL supporters completed that. And the health minister then made an exemption for two worship leaders to sing live. Now, obviously, the pubs and the clubs had more favor and they had more like exemptions on their part. But I think that's a step forward. I think that it showed us what a grassroots movement lobby kind of activity can do is just really help them understand that these things are very important to people of faith and worship is a big part of our lives. So that was really great to see that kind of outcome.
Yeah, and
Indeed, it was.
such a quick turnaround. Like that's the amazing thing when people can respond. Because when a shout out goes out from someone like you, Nikki, not everybody is able to respond straight away. But because we've got such a large now number of people who are switched in, then there's enough people who can respond straight away, and it really does make a big difference.
So tell us, how did things go with Israel Folau and his campaign to get back on the field?
I'm not a person of football, but that was a wild ride. We had about 47 volunteers just calling up footy fans to hold up signs for Israel Folau. And really, it's not just about Israel playing, but it's about freedom and allowing to people to say things about their faith and still allowing them to continue in their career. And so it's quite bold to gather some young people, or I suppose all ages, to come into these football games and hold up signs. You never know what you can expect, but I certainly think that we made our voices heard there, and hopefully we can continue doing that. And again, it's just the quick response. I mean, everyone's usually busy on their weekends, but for them to give up, Saturday nights, just to come and hold up signs, I think is very generous of people.
Indeed, and as you said, we're not here to support a footy player over against any other footy player, but we are here to see that people's religious freedoms are respected, and seeing him back on the field is really the ultimate conclusion of that campaign, which we've been running, had started more than 2 years ago now. Nikki, euthanasia, the fight continues in New South Wales.
Yes, so as we speak, they're having their hearings at the moment. But I know that for ACL, and I'm always reminded by Wendy's quote that it's really not, success isn't defined by just wins, but really us being faithful. And so ACL volunteers here in New South Wales and anyone really that was available, we've been involved in campaigns, online petitions. We had over 5,000 signatures on that. We were there at the rally, just really speaking for life. And our hearts really is to champion life, and that's what we're called to do. So it is ongoing. I would encourage everyone to continue to pray for that, regardless of the result, that in New South Wales, great amendments, or even if the bill is stopped from passing here, that would just be such a miraculous thing that could happen.
Absolutely. And any final thoughts for 2022 for what's happening in New South Wales?
Lots of work to be done. I'm hoping to build on from what we've already established. We really come in here remembering that there's so many new leaders that have come on, and unlike Jasmine, we're still working in New South Wales and in Canberra just to really develop that community of believers, and to put their hands and feet to their faith so that we can have a voice, and really speak the truth in public square. So we've got lots of works with the volunteering leaders, the volunteers, and excited, prayerfully, and walking in there with just humility, I pray, as we continue the work of God in Australia.
Nikki, thank you. It's been great to have you on board. The energy, the passion, the love for Jesus that you bring is just tremendously refreshing. We're very grateful. Thank you, Nikki, in New South Wales.
Yeah.
Thanks, Wendy.
We also have Peter Abetz over in WA. Peter, now you're a unique character, mate. You are both seasoned politically and a tremendous organizer and motivator of volunteers. We're looking to you, Peter, for just a couple of highlights from 2021 before we talk about what's coming next year. So how's it been over there in Perth and WA?
Look, in Western Australia, the big thing for us was the state election in March, which was a total wipeout for the Conservative parties. The Labor Party ended up winning all but 6 seats out of the 59 in the in the lower house. And sadly, many of the solid Christian MPs that we had lost their seats, and so that was a severe disappointment. And likewise in the upper house, we lost some really good people who were voices for Christian values. So that's been quite a challenge for us here in the West, and so that's been it's kind of knocked everybody for six a little bit. But one of the positive things is that it would seem that Mark McGowan is more in the middle. In the Labor Party, the left faction has the dominance in the party room, and the right is slightly small, but Mark McGowan is part of that very small non-aligned section, and he seems to be quite a moderate kind of person in many ways. And so the fear that the left would push some of the more extreme legislation, such as abortion to birth and so on, hasn't materialised at this point in time. So for that, we're very grateful. In terms of some of the highlights or challenges we faced this year was the Law Reform Commission review of the Equal Opportunity Act. They have put out a discussion paper, and with 104 questions they wanted feedback on, it was pretty clear as to what direction they wanted to take that legislation in. And we were able to muster many of our volunteers to send in submissions. We ran some training on Zoom for how to go about doing that. We provided templates and things. So that was really encouraging to see so many of our people rise to the challenge and do something which many had never done before. But by providing the training and upskilling our volunteers, I think we're really moving, elevating the capacity of our volunteers to actually do things like this. And I found that very encouraging. One of the disappointments was the exclusion zone legislation went through. That's exclusion zones around abortion clinics. And the really disappointing thing was that many of the scenarios that MPs painted in the Parliament as to why they were supporting the bill were actually fictitious. Those things, thankfully in Western Australia, had actually never occurred. They, even in the news clips in the news, they actually played clips from scenes in the United States because they didn't have any from here in Western Australia. And as I kept saying to people, if the clinics had video of inappropriate behaviour, they would have shown those many, many times, but never once did anything appear in the news, which clearly indicates that those that were part of the prayer vigils outside our two main abortion clinics in Western Australia really did conduct themselves very, very well over the years and have never really stepped out of line. So that was they're probably the two main things. And I guess the other big thing for us was the distribution of the Gospel of Luke. It was just wonderful to see such a tremendous response from our volunteers that we've delivered 77,000 of them in our state. So that was really wonderful, some great feedback there, and really got a lot of volunteers on board and interacting together and doing something really, really positive. So that was probably the highlight for the year.
Well, I think the other highlight for me in Western Australia was Truth of It Live, Peter.
Of course.
Yes, and it was amazing in Western Australia because I think we probably had the largest crowd in Perth, I think. But we also had, when you talk about the disappointment of people who they've got to get vision from somewhere else to try and prove their point because there's nothing that they can actually use from Australia. The same thing happened, I think, we had a number of protests in Western Australia against the Truth of It Live. And again, there's so many, there's scaremongering and there's things that are said that are just not right. But for us, I think just pushing ahead with the truth, and in Western Australia, it was outstanding. So thank you for everything you did to make that happen as well.
Actually, I should have mentioned the Truth of Life. I was thinking more in terms of the political space, but
the
Truth of Life, that was a wonderful, wonderful time. Like we had, I think, about 4,500 people in the Perth arena, and the atmosphere was just so fantastic, and it was so encouraging for Christians to see so many other Christians come together. And it was also great to see people who had drifted away from church over the years, but who were people who'd listened to some of Martin Iles's Truth of It videos, podcasts. They came along, and some of those people actually reconnected with church. So it was actually a very positive outcome, not only encouraging our volunteers and supporters, but actually it also had a benefit for the kingdom in the sense of people reconnecting with their faith.
Absolutely, and I think it also helps to grow this grassroots movement because people are understanding, okay, this is not about taking sides in politics, this is actually about speaking the truth in public.
We need to move on. Peter, we could spend another hour talking about WA, but yes, prop credit where it's due. Perth holds the record for the largest event we've ever run. We'll see. I'm sure that'll be knocked over in New South Wales and Victoria in the coming year with some more Truth of It Lives. We'll see how we go. Peter Abetz in Perth, WA. Great to have you with us today. Moving straight along to Christopher Brohier over in South Australia, who has the tremendous responsibility of juggling South Australia, Tasmania, and he gets a look into the Northern Territory as well. He also serves as our legal counsel at the ACL. Christopher, great to have you with us this evening. Let's start with South Australia. Just give us a sense for the battles that you've been dealing with in South Australia in 2021.
Thanks, Alister, and hi, Wendy. Just before I start, I just want to make the point that Tasmania had the highest per capita attendance at the Truth of It Live.
See, there you go. Anybody who's watching, you need to know that there's quite a competitive spirit in the ACL.
And South Australia was second with about 2,000 people. Just under the per capita of Tasmania. So just want to make that clear. So we finished the year on really encouraged. We began the year with the abortion to birth bill. We had about 4,000 plus, no, tick under 5,000 people at the Walk for Life. And that was the culmination of a pretty well 2-year campaign. The bill unfortunately passed, but we got some of the, without a doubt, the most amendments of any of the abortion to birth bills, including banning sex selection abortion, some requirement to give help to babies born alive, and a number of other useful amendments. So that was an indication of the hard work and the determined lobbying and mobilization of people that happened through that. And that had a spin-off effect because many churches became involved for the first time in this debate. I attended a prayer meeting where people prayed for the bill to be defeated. When it was passed, people said, what do we do? And that spawned a movement among pastors where there's now about 50 pastors who are encouraging people to get involved in the political process. And that's
Wonderful.
led by Senator Alex Antic from the Liberals and Claire Scriven from the Labor Party. That's a really dynamic Indigenous movement now. The pastors are saying what we've been saying for years.
Yep.
We then tracked pretty well straight after that into the assisted suicide bill. A lot of people were exhausted. ACL carried the leadership of that debate, and even though we lost that, we got for the first time institutional conscientious objection rights. That was led because Calvary Hospital, in a parliamentary forum which we organised, said, if you don't give us this and if we are forced, we will close. And that's been picked up in some measure in New South Wales now. We had again, for the 14th time, a bill to decriminalise prostitution. It was defeated in 2019. It came back again. And I'm thrilled to report that it's not going to pass. There was a Senate Select Committee which ran for a long time. And we put out what we call a one-click politics campaign. We had 400 plus responses. The Secretariat counted that as one response. And so the numbers were weighted in favour of the bill, about 65 to 37. We put out a call for people to send in individual submissions, and they did, and the numbers have now flipped. The people against the bill are more than people for it. We've had lots of people giving evidence, including some of our young ACLers who've done a wonderful job giving evidence to the Commission. Amanda, my wife, gave evidence last Friday. And the weight is there now with Nicola Chendafanti from the Liberals and Claire Scriven from the Labor Party to bring in a Nordic model bill next year. And there's both grassroots, intellectual, and increasingly political understanding and support for this bill. So we're very hopeful that next year we will see for the first time a Nordic equality model bill introduced after the election, and then, God willing, that it passes. Can
I just say, Christopher, before you go on, and I'd love to get Wendy's thoughts on this too, but one of the wonderful things that you've achieved in South Australia, and it's something that we want for across the country, sometimes it's easier to achieve than others, is that bipartisan alliance that you've managed to establish, talking about Claire Scrivens and Alex Antic. I mean, that is tremendous. And we really do look everywhere we can for those opportunities to see that bipartisan effort established.
It's a wonderful thing. So we have very good relationships now with senior members of the Labor Party and senior members of the Liberal Party. We're hoping that after the next election, the last upper house seat could go to one of the pro-life parties. There's One Nation, and we've run a forum for One Nation with Mark Latham. We've run a forum for Family First, and we've run a forum last night for Australian Family Party. So if we can get that final seat, that'll tip the numbers in the upper house very closely to give us coming close to getting a majority in the upper house. That's really, really significant. So yes. We want to see a parliament that's pro-life, pro-truth, regardless of who's in there. And we just got to keep working at it and see parties change from the inside. That's going to be a long-term plan, but we're not going to stop. The Attorney General also wanted to pass legislation similar to the schools legislation in Victoria, but that died because of committee opposition. So that's gone after the next election. And ironically, the Attorney General who argued and promoted and pressed the abortion to birth bill, she's lost her position as Deputy Premier. She's on the sidelines now, though she retains the title of Attorney General. Somebody else is doing her work because of findings of a parliamentary committee, etc. That's been all in the paper. So that's an ironical result right at the close of play this year. And if I could go on, shall I go on to next year?
Yeah, just give us a little quick snapshot.
Yeah.
So the big issue is the election in March 2022. And we're going to run a focus on three marginal seats, Newland, Adelaide and Mawson. All of these members voted for abortion to birth in some way or the other. The sitting member in Newland voted against the amendment to restrict abortion to birth, or they voted for the bill. And our aim is to let people know consistently and determinedly how these people voted. We will not let them forget that. We want our supporters to hear that. And we can't tell people how to vote, but we want them to know that these people voted in some measure against, or all voted against an amendment to restrict the killing of an innocent, viable human being right up to birth. That people must be held accountable to that, and we are determined to make that happen. Generally, in the upper house, we're focusing on letting our people know of the policies of parties that support life, and I've mentioned One Nation, Australian Family Party, and Family First. And we're praying that one of those would get elected. So that's the twofold campaign. The Walk for Life is on the 12th of February, and anyone who's listening to this, you have nothing better to do on the 12th of February than be at that Walk for Life. And that'll spring up from there to the election. So we're finishing with a real sense of, we're having a Christmas breakup on the 17th at C3 Church. And we're finishing up with a real sense of confidence, looking forward to the future. We're thrilled that Rob Norman and Debbie Norman, the pastors of Southland Church, who are one of our great supporters, are now going to take on Queensland and New South Wales next year for Australian Christian Bobby. That'll be a wonderful addition to our team. And we're trusting God to see a parliament that's more tuned to life and more tuned to truth.
Excellent. Christopher, let's continue with, I need to squeeze you on time. We've just got a few minutes. Just to give us some quick highlights on Tasmania, maybe we just include a couple of points on Northern Territory in there as well, just in a couple of minutes if you can.
Sure. So we've been working with a coalition of faith groups, LGB groups to oppose conversion therapy laws, or conversion suppression laws, as I like to call it. So we've been meeting, having extensive discussions. We've had expert Professor John Whitehall speak to parliamentarians, etc., or parliamentarian. We're working at that because there's an inquiry now before the Tasmanian Law Reform Institute. It was supposed to report in about June. It's been pushed back. And we're expecting something to come next year. So we're determined to make people clear that this is false, that this is really a cloak for unfettered gender confusion to be introduced, particularly to teenage girls. It's a tragedy that's happening across Australia, and we have to fight this. So that's the big ticket. The other issue is we've launched a campaign to change the anti-offence speech in Section 17 of the Tasmanian Anti-Discrimination Act. It's the most suppressive piece of legislation across the country, recognised by the Commonwealth Parliament in the explanatory memorandum to the RDA bill. So we've launched a campaign. People have started to attack us, but that's good. We want to be on the front foot, getting them to attack us.
Yes.
And so they're the issues we'll be working on in Tassie. It's a great thing that Sarah Hayes is coming on as Tasmanian State Coordinator from January next year. That's a wonderful addition, and I'll be working with her. And so we're really hoping that Tassie could become a vibrant state to promote life, promote truth. Going on to the Northern Territory, we had the terrible situation of the abortion to birth bill passing, and the MPs didn't even divide. That is, so we could know how many voted one way or the other. The bill simply passed on the voices. That's really, really sad. But we want to keep working, keep building with Wendy and I as we work together, keep raising up this voice to really get this thought, particularly starting with our friends in the churches, that we cannot keep quiet because the other side are at it. Proverbs 28:4 says, "They that forsake the Lord praise the wicked, but such as keep the law contend with them." We have to be contenders in the battle for truth.
I love that, Christopher. You are a dog on a bone. You are the contender of all contenders, and we just really love the example that you lead with, and more strength to your arm in 2022. Christopher, thank you so much for your time today. South Australian State Director, also covering Tasmania. and a bit of a look in the Northern Territory as well. Thank you so much. Wendy, we are really out of time, but I do want to spend a few moments on Queensland. You have until recently been the Queensland State Director as well. Just give us a picture of how Queensland has gone in 2021.
Yeah, so it's exciting for me to say that we have a new state coordinator for Queensland, and her name is Tamara Pavlovich, and she will start at the end of January, so that's exciting. But the sad thing for us in Queensland this year really has been the passing of the euthanasia legislation. That was really disappointing. I hope just from the snapshot that you've taken us through, Alister, and you've done so well even to squeeze it all in. I just hope people can see the amount of work that happens in ACL right around the nation, because we are just so involved in so many different areas. In Queensland, with the euthanasia legislation, it really was pushed through by the ALP. The LNP did oppose it, but some crossed the floor. But I think one of the things that really shocked me this week, and it's in one way it's got nothing to do with Queensland, but just allow me to tell you that Germany has now come out and stated that they will only euthanize people who have been vaccinated against COVID. So I really tried to sort that out in my head, because this whole euthanasia debate is so illogical, and so many people don't understand what euthanasia is and isn't. But to hear that, I was just like, oh, we've gone mad. So we're looking forward to a good year in Queensland, that aside, because Tamara's coming on. We've got Rob Norman coming up as well. So there's going to be great things happening in Queensland next year.
Wonderful. And Wendy, just as we conclude all of this for this year, the Religious Discrimination Bill it continues. It's in 2 committees, not 1. It will come back out of that. Submissions are closing in January. The Parliamentary Joint Committee on Human Rights submissions close on the 21st of this month. So there's a lot of work we want people to do quickly. There is a 10-question survey. Anything you just want to say about that one?
The survey is going to be really important, because that will be a numbers game. And the survey, the link, you will have got it from ACL, but you can easily Google and find it as well. But it's a survey that the government has put out, and all you need to do is actually do yes or no. There is a box that you can put more information in, but they've made it really easy to put yes or no. Please read the questions carefully. Ask us if you need any advice, but this will be a numbers game. And so it's a really important one. As you say, there are 2 committees looking at it. One, they close on the 21st of December. One is not until January. And so everybody can actually take part in that as well. The reports from both of those committees are due back on the 4th of February, and then it will go straight into Parliament. Parliament will sit in the first couple of weeks in February, so it'll go to the lower house and then the upper house. And there is still an opportunity to get this bill through before the next election, although it's a very slim window. So it's possible,
yep.
And I really would ask people to pray about that.
And we are all over it like a bad rash.
We are.
All right. And as we approach Christmas, we want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas. We invite you to take a moment to think about the reason for the season. Of course, the birth of the Lord Jesus Christ. We are going to be back in 2022 bigger than ever. We will be starting the year with another round of the download, which is a whole big group of young adults numbering over 100. We've had to move it to the location to the ACT, but we would invite you to be in prayer for those folk. It is a tremendously powerful week that they have together, where they get to touch on politics and history and theology and personal faith issues and stuff. And the atmosphere is just tremendous. I wish you could all be there.
Yeah.
But
True.
Just about 100 or so, I think, this time, which is a really good number. Our Managing Director, Martin Niles, will be speaking there, and that will mark his return from leave, and he will be raring to go for a massive year in 2022 as well. Expect to see us again in mid-January. God bless you all, and good evening.
Thank you.